Hey buddy, what's up? So welcome back to the Vortex garage, and Sharky and I were thinking about what we wanted to do today. Figured, hey, might as well do some cold starts. So we've got a couple of cars here we haven't run in a while. We'll see if we can get them started. We got a 94 Camaro Z28, the LT1. Of course, we got our 85 K10 with a carbureted 350. Well, let's see what happens. Let's give these a try. I got my handheld camera here. All right, let's go ahead and get this fired up here. We'll see if it starts up. Oh, geez. No pedal, no nothing, just fired right up. Very easy, okay. We need something a little harder. Let's try the truck. And this one's been quite a while since it's been started. And it's also always a little tough to start. And well, it's also a little tough to climb into. There we go. Just a little bit of gas, see what happens. It's pretty warm out today. There we go. All right. Well, that really wasn't all that difficult either. Well, that was too easy. They both started just fine. Well, I could try to cold start the lawnmower, but well, it's going to start just fine too. I need something harder, something more difficult to start. I need something a little bit harder, something harder to start. If only I had something, I don't know, maybe about 50 years old, maybe British, hasn't been run in years, who knows how long it's been sitting out. Something like, yeah, something like this. A 67 Triumph Spitfire. At least I think it's a 67. When I bought it, the owner said it was a 66, but it's definitely a Mark III, I can tell that. There's no way this will start. This thing's been sitting out. It's a junkyard car. Come on. So I guess the big question is, what are we going to do? I mean, we're going to do cold starts today. This isn't exactly a cold start. This is a try and revive it start, and this is a 50-year-old British car. I mean, I know I was talking big for a second there, but, well, I think that is what our task is going to be. When we got this car, we knew it was a parts car. We knew it was complete, but I kind of want to see if I can get the engine running. Why the heck not? So again, 67 Spitfire. I think we'll hopefully figure that out as we dissect it. I've literally done nothing to pull this car apart or to look at it. I will say I've popped the hood. I've verified there's a motor in here, but there's some parts missing. But all the exploratory work, we're going to do it on camera. We're going to let you see what we're working on, what we got. I haven't even taken anything out, all the junk in the interior that's sitting there. Our trunk got a nice big box of spares in it. We're going to go through that. Let's go ahead and take a look under here. All right, so there is a motor. There's a couple of SU carburetors. Everything looks complete in there. So I think, that's what we're going to do. We're going to give this a little shot and see what we can get. Boys. All right. All right, that was way too hard. All right, so we got the Spitfire in the garage. And as you can see, before we did that, we went ahead and cleaned it out. Got all the dirt, rust, and leaves out. Well, not all the rust, the loose rust, the scaly rust. See, we got the trunk cleaned out as well. So we're all set to go ahead and check this out a little closer. And so let's go ahead and pop this hood and take a look at that motor again. So let's first preface this. Why am I going to even bother getting this engine to run? Well, I'll let you know, my plan isn't to get it running so I can drive this car around, throw some paint on it, and hope or think that it's going to get inspected. This is a rusty old car that needs a restoration. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's really the challenge of finding out if we can get this engine to even fire off. It's close to 50 years old. It's been sitting in a junkyard who knows how many years. We know nothing about its history. Can we make it fire off? So that's our challenge for this video. We're going to see if we can get this to run. All right, let's take just a little closer look at what we're dealing with here. This is a 67 Triumph motor. It's a little 4-cylinder overhead valve. This is where our battery goes. Well, where our battery falls through. Maybe we can sort of just rig something up to set a battery temporarily. Now the good news is, again, I think being a 67, this should be a negative ground, so we're in good shape there. The carbs obviously have had the air cleaners off for a while. That's not a good sign. All right, so first things first, I'm going to pull the plugs. Okay, let's see what we got. Pull at least one spark plug and see what we have before we do anything else. That's a good sign. Let's just pull this one plug and see what we got. Looks like a pretty new plug, actually. Get a view on this camera so you can see. Tell you what. I also wanted to check the oil, and that is a less than good thing. Here is our dipstick, and it looks full of water and oil. Doesn't really look that good. Feels pretty oily, but it smells a little like gas too, so we're definitely going to be draining that oil out before we do anything. So. All right, let's go ahead and get these plugs off, but I don't really know the firing order. I haven't looked it up, so I'm just going to literally do 1, 2, 3, 4, and just put some tape around them. Start at 4. This one will be number 3. That's a tight fit. Okay. So one of the reasons I'm going to pull the plugs, there's not a really good, easy to reach spot on the crank pulley to get a spin on it, the way the fan and the radiator are. So I'm just going to pull out the plugs to release any compression. Because at this point, I'm mainly curious if this motor will even spin over. Okay, we'll just leave those there for now. We'll go ahead and get the rest of our plugs out. Woo! This one's much more sooty. Take a look at that one. That was our number 1. I hope this engine at least fires and runs a little bit. I have a feeling it's not going to run particularly well. 75 horsepower from the factory. Actually, I think it might have been 73 horsepower. And that was gross horsepower. What that meant, they would do the horsepower test without any of the accessories on it, like the, well, this doesn't have power steering, but the generator or any other power sapping things. There aren't really many on this one. But I think I read the net horsepower was changed on these. It might have been with some of the emissions gear down to the 50s. Wow, this is a literally brand new plug. This is slightly disturbing that some of the plugs, the back 2 cylinders look brand new and the front 2 are pretty sooty. All right, so I'm going to move this camera temporarily. All right, so basically what we're going to do is, before we do too much else, I'm going to go ahead and get some lubricant and rust killer put in there. So I'm going to start off with some PB Blaster. I'm going to put a little bit of PB Blaster down the spark plug holes. Okay, just a bit. If you watch the pulley on the generator, I'm going to move the fan and we're going to see if that spins at all. Okay, so I'm going to just move the fan a bit. Kind of rock that back and forth. Now as soon as I pull too much, the fan starts slipping, so, but just a little bit there. I just put a little pressure on the fan belt. And this is kind of one of the things I was afraid of. This is awesome. This thing's stuck in gear. So the good news is the motor is turning a bit, and this thing is so light, I shouldn't have pushed it. Apparently I can just turn the fan blade and move the whole car. All right, so let me try to get a better camera view and show you this. So this is going to cramp our style a bit. We might have to, when we are ready to start the thing, we're going to have to jack the back end up. Okay, so if I push down on the fan belt, I can get enough tension on the pulleys without the belt slipping that I can move the fan and turn the motor. But when I do that, the whole car moves. Kind of ratchet that back. All right, watch, ready? So watch the front wheel. All right, that's not me pulling the car, that's the motor pulling the car. So we are definitely stuck in gear. And let me show you the problem as to why we're going to have an issue getting it out of gear. So I'm going to try to sit in this thing. Now let's hope we don't fall through the floor. And that seat is so nasty. All right, I'm going to put this down on that seat. I don't want to sit on that, that's nasty. All right. Okay, I'm going to try to get in here. Let's hope that I don't fall through the floor. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is awesome. This is too freaking cool. The seat is really just falling back, kind of. But, all right. So here's part of our problem. Thing is definitely, there we go. Now it's in neutral. I couldn't do that before, it was stuck in gear, so it looks like getting in the car helped. And here's my other issue. All right, that's our 3 pedals. So here's our throttle pedal's working good. Brake pedal has no pressure, but it's working. And you can feel a little bit of spring back on it. But the clutch pedal, nothing. It's totally seized. Nothing. So more than likely our clutch master cylinder is totally seized up. This is stuck hard. I can move the pedal around, but it will not budge. All right, but the good news is our transmission is now in neutral. And it seems like we have gears. So now that we're in neutral, let's see if we can climb out of this thing without falling through the floor. We'll remount our camera. All right, so we're gonna try to move the motor again and see if the whole car moves. Okay, so we're gonna push down on the fan. Oh, there we go. Nice. And, okay, a little stuck there. But that motor just spun pretty freely. I think we got a good motor. I think we're good. See if I can get a full revolution. Yeah, there we go. There we go. This motor is spinning just fine. No weird noises. No, it doesn't feel weird. It just feels smooth. So at this stage, I'm fairly confident we've got an engine that'll spin freely. So we got the green light to move ahead. All right, we got the Spitfire jacked up. I'm gonna go ahead and drain the oil out of it before we move forward, now that we know the engine moves. It's got one of these funky square drain plugs. Ah, come on. That's so a 10. Why can we not use a proper drain plug? Oh, let's clean this off a little bit. Okay, try a adjustable wrench on it. Oh, how I hate these. All right, wow. I've been stopped by one of the most simple things, changing the oil. The drain plug is a square plug kind of fitting, and tried everything. I tried an open end 10 millimeter that fit perfectly on it and started rounding it. I tried vice grips. I tried crescent wrench. I don't have a small pipe wrench to get on there, so what I ended up doing was filing it down to where a 3/8 inch socket, so a 3/8 inch drive socket would fit on it. This just so happens to be a 3/8 socket. So anyway, put the drive end onto the square piece that I filed down, and then I went ahead and got a Allen key kind of deal socket and put that in the other end, the 3/8 hex head side. And I'm finally now getting that drain plug to spin. This is awesome. Man, I can't believe I probably worked on this thing for about 20 minutes trying to get it out. And actually, it was probably longer than that, but that's all right. All right, look at this. There we go. Ah, man. I don't even know what that is. I think it's water. Let's see how much of it there is. Let's see, we got oil now. Yeah, so this oil actually, once you get to the oil part, it's pretty fresh. Well, no big metal chunks came out, so that's a good thing. Here's my oil drain plug removal tool. All right, so I didn't have a standard oil drain plug that would fit, but I actually had another pipe fitting. Looks like it's a 3/8 inch pipe fitting, so I'm gonna see if this will go in there. Excellent. Yeah, since we chewed the other one up, go ahead and use this. This one uses a 7/16. All right, that's it. I don't really want to torque it too much. That ought to do it. All right, so we're at our next stopping point. Kind of didn't do my homework correctly. Picked up this Fram oil filter because it was the right price at the time. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who don't like Fram, but again, I'm just going to get this old motor starting, so it'll suffice for that. Well, it may not have to suffice for that because here is the original oil filter that I took off of it. As you can see, like everything else on this damn car, somebody painted it red. You can even see the drips and oil spray on, or overspray. This car uses a 5/8 thread to screw on, and modern oil filters in North America use a 3/4 inch. And it was funny because when I looked at the oil filters, the one I was going to buy referenced that you needed the adapter. This one didn't, and I figured, well, it must mean that I can just get that one. And it's not the case. Like I said, I did not do my homework. So if we're going to start it today or tomorrow, I unfortunately don't seem to be able to find one locally. I'm going to order one up and get it, and we'll swap out the oil filter, but I may use this to start it with. I think it'll suffice. It'll work. We'll keep an eye on everything. We're not going to run it very long anyway. So, all right, I'm just going to put some fresh oil in it. All right, so we got some fresh oil in it. We got our spin filter back on. We got all the plugs pulled out. We kind of spun the motor by hand. I'm getting anxious. I want to see if this motor is going to spin on its own. So I've got a battery I'm going to mount up. We're going to try plugging it in. We're going to see what happens. But before I do that, even though we got fresh oil in, I'm going to put a little bit of this Marvel Mystery Oil on top of the cylinders. A little bit in each cylinder. Okay, just to kind of help give a little bit of lube to the top end as we spin it. We're not going to, obviously it's not going to fire. No spark plugs. I don't think it would anyway. I doubt it has in the ignition. Let's go ahead and put our battery up. I'm just going to kind of cant it in here because we don't really have a place to set it right now. This is all routed out. So I'm just going to kind of put it in like that for now. All right, so we got the battery just sort of popped in, canted, since we can't set it in the battery tray right now. We're going to have to fix that before we do too much more or extend the battery leads. But anyway, this is just to see if we can get the motor to turn with the key and the starter. I have no idea if there's electronics working from the key to the starter to the battery. So really got no idea what's going to happen. Just want to hook it up just for a split second and kind of see what happens. And also we'll go ahead and cycle some of that new oil through the motor. Remember, we put a little lubricant on the top end. All right, enough talk. We got this sucker hooked up. Let's try turning the key. That's awesome. All right, so we know we've got starter. Let's go ahead and put our plugs back in and see if it sounds like we have compression. Everything with starting an old motor like this is kind of like stages. I mean, you could just take the whole thing apart and do the work. And if you plan on using it, that's what I'd recommend. But if you're like me and you just want to get the thing to light off and see if it'll even do it, want to find out if this is a worth this endeavor, I don't want to spend hours on it. All right, our fourth plug is in. Let's try cranking it again with plugs in and see if we kind of notice if we've got compression. Sure sounds like it to me. Woo! I think this thing's gonna start. I am psyched. All right, so now that we know the engine's gonna crank, our next step, I've been kind of looking at the ignition system. So we're gonna pop our distributor cap off. Keep that on for now. Our nice painted red distributor cap. We're gonna be careful not to flake any of the paint off inside. I'm gonna kind of move this out of the way, but keep an eye on it. Make sure it stays the direction I want it. But the big thing I wanna look at, I'm gonna break this camera off. Let's take a look at the point set. All right, so here's inside our distributor, and these are the points right here. Basically, as the distributor spins, it'll open and close these points, and this is what'll send your ignition, spark through. So let's take a look here. After sitting for a while, the points will probably have a film over them, basically. But just look in here, let's see if we can get this to focus. And these points look really pitted and nasty. So these points look pretty rough, and we haven't even tried to check for spark yet, but I think we're gonna try to clean these up and see if we can get spark out of it, just because I'm curious again with these old parts to see what we get. But I've actually preemptively bought a new set of points, condenser, and a few ignition parts because I figured this would be the biggest part of our problem. Let's go ahead and clean those up a bit. I'm just basically gonna sand down the points a little bit. I don't think you should use sandpaper for this. I think emery paper, or there's a special type of stone I think you're supposed to use. I know sandpaper can leave some residue on the points, but I'll just clean it off. And these are so bad, I don't even know if these are salvageable, but I'd like to give it a try anyway. Okay, we'll put our cap back on. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and use a spark tester on this. So basically the spark tester, it's got these different values here. This is S for standard ignition system, electronic, and then based on the kilovolts for a high energy output ignition, you can actually move this up. What it'll do, you just put your spark plug lead on here, and then you've got a spot to ground it out. And then just by adjusting the screw, it'll actually let you see the spark. So this is just a tool that lets you do what you can do very easily just with a spark plug, but you can kind of position it so you can see it as you're cranking. You don't have to hold the plug if you can't get a good spot to ground it. So if you're just working by yourself, it actually is kind of handy. So we're gonna put this on our number 1 lead. Put it in a spot where we can see it. And then we just gotta find a good spot to ground it. Our block. And as we crank it, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, I'm not seeing any spark. So we're gonna go ahead and replace the point set because it just looks so nasty and pitted. And we're gonna go ahead and put in the rest of our ignition parts while we're at it. I'll show you what we got. All right, so I preemptively got a few parts that I thought we might need. Went ahead and got a new cap, rotor, 4 new spark plugs. Here's our point set, our condenser, and I went ahead and got a new ignition coil too, because I know that one's been sitting for who knows how many years. ahead and pull out the points and condenser and get those replaced. Real careful that we don't lose any of this stuff. Okay, there we go. Here's our old points. Okay, here's our old condenser. I'm gonna get a little rag and some cleaner. We're gonna clean that out. Okay, got our condenser in. Let's get our new points set in. Tighten that up later as soon as we get it adjusted. In the meantime, we got to go ahead and get these two wires hooked up, so we're going to need a little wrench. All right. There's our points, and now we're still going to have to set the points, which isn't too big a deal. All right, so what we're going to want to do to adjust our points. Now, the points assembly will end up resting against the centerpiece, which has kind of a square 4-point cam, one for each cylinder. And as it rolls over that, it'll open up the points gap. And what we want to do is we want to get 0.015 inch on our gap. But to do that and to test it, we have to roll this motor we need to get this pivot point to match up on our points. Go ahead and open our points. So got everything installed. I'm going to do the trick with the motor. I'm going to go ahead and turn it by hand. Okay, until we get right up there on that point. All right, and there we go. All right, so real quick, we're going to go ahead and show you how to adjust the points on this vehicle. Now first, we've got a locking screw right here, which we're going to go ahead and keep a little bit loose. And then just next to it, which you may not be able to see behind here, is an adjuster screw. Now as I turn that adjuster screw, it's going to move the entire points assembly. Let me kind of move out of the way a little bit. And you'll see as I adjust it in one direction, it'll go ahead and make contact with this center piece. Remember, we're on that one lobe. And it'll go ahead and open up the points. So go ahead and watch the points as they open up as I adjust it. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is go ahead and open the points up using our adjuster screw, and then take a feeler gauge, and we're going to want to do 0.015 as the spec for this car, which is 0.38 millimeters. So we'll go ahead and adjust these open, put our feeler gauge in between, and then go ahead and tighten them until we start getting drag on our feeler gauge. So you'll feel it as you open it, it'll be loose, and you'll start to get a little drag on it, and that tells you you're pretty much set. So once you get to that point, you can go ahead and tighten your locking screw. Then make sure that you still got drag on your feeler gauge, and your points are now set at the correct specification. All right, so next up, let's go ahead and install our rotor, and then our cap. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and transfer our wires over in the order they are. All right, and there we go. We've now got a new cap, rotor, points, and condenser. Next up, we're going to go ahead and put in that new coil. Checking for spark. All right, so I just went ahead and put in our new spark plugs and replaced the leads based on how I marked them, with the number 1 cylinder being toward the radiator. Well, I just verified that's correct. This is the number 1 cylinder. But when I hooked these back in to the way our old distributor cap was, it looks like whoever tried to run this before, and who knows how many years ago that was, I have it as 1, 2, 3, 4. And I knew that was wrong. I knew that couldn't be the firing order. So I went ahead and looked it up. And from what I can gather, this should be the number 1 lead right here. And it'll go 1, 3, 4, 2. So we're going to redo those and then hopefully have them right. And if we need to, we'll check the timing on this as we go to start it. Now that I know that, I have a feeling other things weren't done quite right on this ignition system. But now what we can do, we're going to want to find top dead center on our number 1 cylinder, and then make sure that our rotor is pointing at the number 1 lead under our distributor cap, and then we'll know that we're good. So we'll check that stuff out and make sure we're all set before we try to start it. So be careful with our gasket, because I do want to reuse it. This is a good chance for us to sort of check everything out. Eventually we're going to want to check our valves. We got the number 1 plug out. We lay the screwdriver on here. And as we rotate the engine, it should push our screwdriver up. You can see the piston kind of come up through the cylinder and then start to drop back down. So basically, we want to kind of get it when it's at the top of that stroke. We can pop our cover off. We know cylinder 1's at top dead center. And our rotor, it's just a little past at top dead center. Our rotor is pointing here, so this should be our number 1 lead. So let's redo these. So number 1, and we're going to go 3, and 4, 2. All right, so hopefully we should be good on timing. We've corrected the error that this motor had from the previous owner. Based on, just some really non-scientific methods, I think we're pretty close. So let's see if that does the trick for us. In the meantime, while I have this open, this hasn't been oiled in a while. I'm going to go ahead and put a little assembly lube on it. Go ahead and assemble the valve cover and put our spark plug back in. All right, so before we get too much further, I'm going to go ahead and remove the gas tank. I don't want to pump any of this nasty fuel in here. There seems to be a tiny bit of gas left in here. And oh yeah, if you're wondering if it's bad, yeah, I'm pretty sure that it is. Oh, and now that it's not stuck in gear, it ought to be a little easier for me to push it out. All right, I think we're at the point where we can go ahead and give this thing a shot in terms of trying to start it. I'm going to roll it out of the garage. I don't want to do any of this inside because of the fire hazard. I don't want to risk it. So I'm going to roll it out where it's out in the open. I'll have fire extinguishers nearby in case anything goes wrong. I'm just going to start off by doing it with just spraying a little stuff into those old nasty carbs. Just see if we get anything. Look at that. All right, so we had it fire off a little bit just by spraying a little bit of carb cleaner in the end of the carbs. So I think we're in a good spot. I think let's go ahead and try to get a little more fuel into it, see if we can get a little bit more than just that. All right, I think we're all set to go ahead and give this thing a start. I've got a temporary fuel line run into a little 2 to 4 psi for carburetors electric fuel pump going into a little gas can. I got a little switch here, and we're pumping a little fuel. Okay, it feels like our floats are full, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the fuel flow for right now. I'm just going to crank it and see what happens. Hang on. Holy crap. Alright, I'm going to turn the fuel flow on. Remember, we don't have any coolant in it, so we can't run it for very long. Alright, we got the pump on. Hop on in. Alright, now we're getting nothing. Chokes feel pretty jammed. I think that's, let's see, I think that's closed, I think that's open. Oh man, look at all the smoke. Woo! Alright, I can't believe this thing started. Alright, let's run it again. See if it'll start again. Alright, now remember, we don't have any coolant in the radiator, so we're only going to run it for a few seconds at a time. I have a little trouble now. She's idling. All right, let's shut her down. Oh, that's a lot of nasty smoke. Whew! I can't believe she runs. So, our original plan to do some cold starts morphed into successfully reviving the engine on this 67 Triumph Spitfire. You know, as we went through the car, we actually found evidence that the last time it may have ran was in 1978. That's 37 years, much of which were spent outside in the elements. But even though we got this engine running, our story doesn't end here. On the next episode of Vortex Garage, we're going to see if we can take this Junkyard Spitfire and make it move and stop under its own power. So, stay tuned.